7 days ago, I started playing Fortnite on keyboard and mouse as an experiment to see how easy it is to learn. To start day 1, I plugged in my brand new mouse and keyboard, and then I had to figure out my settings. I tested 3 different pro binds and was so stuck because nothing felt comfortable. But after 20 minutes, I ultimately decided to just use Booga's binds with a small modification. That one change worked perfectly because I finally felt some comfort with my binds, and once that happened, I started to see some pretty fast progress. Within 20 minutes, I could do some basic 90s without the floor, and within 2 hours, I could even hit a triple at it. Some people doubt that builds like these are possible within just the first few hours, but I found that they're actually kind of easy. The thing is, if you're good on controller and already know the feel of things like triple edits, 90s, side jumps, you can learn that stuff really fast on mouse and keyboard because you already know how to do it in your head. It's simply just making sure your fingers click the right buttons. It's different for players that have never done these builds because they also have to learn the pattern of placing them, the timing between edits. It makes it take way longer to learn. So day 1 was the most amount of hours I spent practicing by far. I really grinded my mechanics this day to try to build that muscle memory, so I spent nearly 6 hours just free building and in this piece control map before I even tried to fight a real player. And even when I thought I was ready to try out a fight, I was quickly humbled in a creative free-for-all where I died like 5 times in a row while not hitting a single shot. Finally, I did manage to flick onto someone in my box for my first official elim on a real player. I stayed in this free-for-all map for a few hours and saw some very good progress. By the end of this session, I had what I'd call my first good play. But plays like this were rare. Most of the time I was just whiffing shots and getting mad. So going into hour 8 of day 1, I tested out some 1v1s for the first time, and those started out probably just like you'd imagine. I died a lot. But just like with the building, I know a lot of good fighting strats on controllers, so I can learn them faster on mouse and keyboard. Like how to do good piece control, when to place cones, good peek shots to take. I don't have to learn how to do these things, I just have to learn which buttons to click, and slowly but surely, I started to learn. Towards the end of day 1, I started to realize that I could actually win fights without doing any real piece control or intricate builds, but just by relying on my aim, which was really starting to warm up. But this type of playstyle is kind of pointless when you're in the learning stage, because if you're not placing builds, you're not getting better at building. So while it is fun to just sort of flick up and hit a max pump, my playstyle was starting to get pretty lazy, so I ended day 1 with a little over 10 hours of experience. On day 2, I woke up and went straight into the pit free-for-all map to warm up, but I quickly learned that this map is actually an insane aim training. Like, people are constantly flying around, so you can pick up a weapon like the mammoth pistol and really dial in your shots. After about 90 minutes in this map, I felt like I wasn't missing. And let me remind you, I'm not like a keyboard and mouse gamer at all. Over the past few years, I've navigated my PC with the mouse, and I think I've played some Minecraft with keyboard and mouse, but nothing to the point where my aim should look like this. Honestly, I attribute this aim specifically to the mouse I have and the sense I copied from Booga. So a couple hours in the free-for-all map got me ready to head in my first ever public game. I could instantly see the effect of the aim training when I hit some solid shots. My aim all around was pretty good. I hit some shots with the mammoth pistol, the MK, I even sprayed someone down with an SMG. The issue was, I still had very little experience on mouse and keyboard, and the pressure of real games is heavy. So I ended up dying once, then twice, then 3 times. And I think by maybe my 6th or 7th game, I'd gotten a little more comfortable, but also very lucky when the 2 sweats in the lobby were storm fighting. One died in zone, and then I managed to pick off the other while they were rotating. This left just 2 really bad players standing between me and my first victory on mouse and keyboard. So all I had to do was rely on my aim training from earlier and spray at these guys. Neither one of them really built, so I easily had my first win with just 13 total hours of experience on mouse and keyboard. And that win satisfied me enough for the day, so on day 2, I only practiced for 3 total hours. And we'll see that that's a pretty similar trend for the rest of the week. Me spending over 10 hours practicing on day 1 was not a normal thing to do. Most people get to practice maybe 1 to 3 hours per day, meaning they might end their first whole week with 10 hours of practice. Meanwhile, I got to do that in just the first day. Day 3 though was a bit more normal. I wanted day 3 to be a big day of improving my mechanics, so after another solid warm up in the pit free-for-all map, I spent over 3 hours doing only 1v1s. For some reason though, the 1v1 started off very rough. I was whipping wide open shots and losing to really bad players, which got me kinda mad. how am I missing? But slowly I settled back into it and got back to where I thought I should be, hitting my shots and making some decent plays. Unlike the 1v1s at the end of day 1, in these fights I was actually building and trying to do some good piece control with smart play. I wasn't strictly relying on my aim to win the fight, and this led me to beating some players that I thought were definitely way better than me. Don't get me wrong though, my aim was still noticeably improving, and some of these shots I didn't even know how I was hitting them. Oh my god. Like, the aim on mouse and keyboard just feels so natural that it honestly feels easy. People always say that the hardest part of keyboard and mouse is learning the aim, but for me personally, it was definitely harder to learn the builds, because for the aim, especially the shotgun aim, it seemed easy. Like, when I miss a shotgun shot on controller, a lot of times I think it's just a very hard shot to hit, but missing those same shots while aiming with the mouse almost feels like a silly mistake. Like, it feels like you should be hitting it. It's honestly kind of crazy, and now I sort of understand how some of these pros just don't miss. I personally have never got that feeling on controller. But I end day 3 at 3.5 hours of practice, bringing my total experience to just under 17 hours. I started off day 4 with a good free build session to warm up, and this officially marked the halfway point to my week-long progression. I felt like I'd seen so much improvement through just doing 1v1s on day 3 that I decided to head back into them. And just like the day before, I was hitting my shots, like even crazier shots than before. I just wasn't missing, and I even got kind of cocky showing off to my chat.
You guys want to see how easy low ground aim is? I mean, some of the easiest stuff ever. Like, bro, it's actually a cheat code.
All the previous days I've practiced so far, my aim started off a little cold and warmed up the longer I played. But something was different this day, and I was just hitting my shots as soon as I started playing. Coincidentally, day 4 was also the shortest amount of time I practiced during the entire week, stopping after only 2.5 hours. This lack of practice put me into a different mode though, because I knew I was now on day 5 and really wanted to push to see how good I could get by the end of the week. On day 5, my free builds were getting a little smoother and my plays were getting way smarter. I wasn't hitting as many crazy flick 200 pumps, but that was just because I wasn't really attempting them. I was more focused on piece control and really consistency. I was winning more 1v1 fights than any of the previous days, but not too many of them were flashy. They were just quality wins. I practiced for nearly 4 hours on day 5, meaning my total experience was very close to 24 hours or one entire day, and it was starting to show. But in grinding that much, and after playing basically only 1v1 build fights for the past 3 days, I needed something new to keep me interested in practicing on day 6. 1v1 build fights are one of the best possible ways to practice, but if you only play one mode, you will get burned out. So to keep it fun, I tried some box fights for the first time on keyboard and mouse, and wow, is it a different experience compared to controller. I didn't seem to run into a ton of great players, but I mean, I'm on day 6 of learning keyboard and mouse, and I felt unstoppable in these things. The speed that you can make these angled edits and take a quality shot before instantly resetting the build with scroll wheel is actually amazing. Like, I'm almost convinced that me with 24 hours of mouse and keyboard experience could beat me with over 1,000 hours of controller experience. It's just so much easier on this input. Switching over to day 6 1v1 build fights though, yeah, me on controller would absolutely destroy me on mouse and keyboard in these. But even so, here I found myself consistently beating players that seemed pretty good at the game. I was making some smart quality plays and hitting my shots, which is really all you need to do to beat most players. Some players are just way too good and you have to have like blazing fast mechanics to beat them, but that's like the top 1% of players. Most of them you can just beat playing smart. So later on into day 6, I queued into the Go-Goated Zone Wars map for the first time and found myself having so much fun. Up until now, I've avoided Zone Wars maps on mouse and keyboard because if you die, you usually have to wait 2 to 5 minutes before the next round starts, which means if you die a lot, that adds up to hours of wasted time you could have spent practicing. That's why free-for-alls or 1v1s are great practice, because if you die, you instantly respawn and get back into a fight. However, these 26 hours of experience have gotten me to a point where I can actually hold my own in a Zone Wars map like this, and it is really fun to be at that skill level. I was hitting so many mammoth pistol shots and even shotgun shots. Like, once again, my aim got to this point where it just felt like I didn't miss. Then I got into an interesting lobby where there was a full trio of OGs with a Renegade Raider, Aerial Assault Trooper, and Sparkle Specialist. I decided to put on my pink ghoul and have a little battle with them, but with me being a keyboard and mouse newbie, and this is what happened. So that was fun, but that made them leave, and then I continued on for a few more rounds, hitting shots, making good plays. This map is actually great for practice because just like the pit, there's constantly people flying around, making for great target practice. Then you also have some close range combat and a little bit of added pressure due to there being just one winner at the end. So all of that makes for some pretty good, really fun practice. And that leads us to the final day of this experiment, day 7. To warm up for today, I spent a little bit of time at box fights and then headed into real games for just the second time since switching to mouse and keyboard. The reason I played real games so little is similar to the reason I avoided zone wars. It's just not optimal for practice. You can spend up to 5 minutes looking for a game in the pregame lobby, up to 10 minutes looting and finding somebody to fight, all just to die very quickly. This is obviously a ton of wasted time, so while learning, creative is definitely better. But at some point, these games are the whole reason you're even learning, so you do want to play them. And on day 7, I did have some success in these games. Just overall, I felt much more comfortable, and my aim especially was way better. But these lobbies do have some very skilled players in them, so I didn't just run through the lobby like I would have liked to. And an even bigger issue than the skilled players were the insanely overpriced mythics that caused me to rage quit playing pubs.
Like, bro, I hate mythics so much.
If I did continue playing pubs, there's no doubt I could have gotten a good win, but the mythics made it pointless to waste time when I can more effectively show off my progress in a map like this. So back in the Zone Wars map towards the end of day 7, my aim was crazy. Every headshot just felt casual, I felt like my builds were faster than ever, and I felt like I was finally a pretty decent player, especially after this clutch. Right after that, I hit probably my craziest shot of the entire week.
Oh my god, bro, what a flip!
And then I finally rounded it out with this endgame, which I feel perfectly shows off my previous 32 hours of practice and this entire week's worth of progression. So that's my 7 days of keyboard and mouse progress. Make sure to subscribe, go follow my Twitch, and thank you so much for watching.